Okay, we're going to break away from that right now because there is a press conference taking place in Washington State. This is after they have seen some weather issues there in the last 24 hours that has led to massive flooding across the state, and including one levee breach that prompted evacuations, and according to our partners there in ABC, have led to at least one person dead in that flash flooding. Let's go ahead and listen to officials there again. This is out of Washington in the Seattle area.
The challenge, but our hearts go out to that individual and their family and loved ones. I also want to express my deep appreciation to our first responders, the National Guard, our emergency management teams, numerous state employees, and all those who are lending a hand to help Washingtonians through this emergency. Long hours, as you might imagine, are the norm for those individuals. We deeply appreciate their hard work and dedication. I've met a number of folks who are not only doing that work, but then going to their homes at the end of a long day to try and stabilize their home situation and deal with the family situation because the floods are impacting them quite directly. And that is quite inspiring to see that level of dedication. Even they have their own risks that are personal, that they're out there doing their work to help other Washingtonians. As we've been saying every day since it started, the situation is extremely unpredictable. And that's something I want to emphasize again to all Washingtonians. We've seen that unpredictability just in the last 24 hours as two examples, the levee breach in Tukwila and also the situation in Pacific Washington this evening where there is an emergency evacuation. I've seen video of people literally on the streets in the middle of the night coming out of their homes. We have, this is not, and it's not a 1 or 2 day event, right? We're in for the long haul, and all that water is putting a lot of stress on our infrastructure. And we're seeing that in real time. And that is something I just want to emphasize to Washingtonians to be alert. If you get an evacuation order, for God's sakes, follow it. I was down in Pacific County with Executive Mello Sunday, I think it was, and met with water rescue personnel, and one of those individuals said, this is someone who's done a lot of water rescue in his professional life. He mentioned in the last couple of days being in a situation in the water that he felt was a life-threatening situation for him. Nobody wants to put our first responders in that level of danger. If you get an evacuation order, leave. That's for your own safety. It is also for the safety of first responders, because guess what? If you're in trouble and you call, they will go get you out. That puts themselves at risk. And so we're asking individuals for this very volatile situation to make sure that they're listening to those orders. I also just want to add the coordination at all levels of government with tribes, with organizations that you'll hear from, communities across our state has truly been tremendous. That is, I ask at every stop I go to, and I've been to a number, is there anything else you need? Is there any more coordination you need? The response has always been no, we've got the resources we need. People are responding quickly. That's from Grays Harbor to Yakima, Stehekin, all around. That has been the response I'm hearing from folks. And that coordination, we need it. And it has served us well. It's helped. The other thing I think has helped is significant investments in infrastructure in recent years. In Ording, for example, investments in a levee system there compared to floods several years ago, night and day in terms of the impacts there. Mount Vernon, Washington, the seawall there literally saved the downtown. King County, the King County Flood Control District has invested hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to shore up our flood system here and prepare for it. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with individuals saying, it's bad, it's really bad, but the magnitude would have been far, far worse had we not made those investments. And these are investments just in the last recent years, have literally, their commitments saved lives, saved businesses, saved entire downtowns. So I think all those things have served us well, and I'm grateful for leaders over recent years who have made those investments and the individuals in the state of Washington willing to invest in that. While it will be some time before we know the full scope of the emotional, physical, and financial impact, this natural disaster is undoubtedly one of the most devastating in our state's history. I do want to take a moment to speak directly to Washingtonians who are directly impacted by this emergency. We see you. We know the situation you're in. We're doing everything we can and moving heaven and earth to get resources to you as quickly as humanly possible. All Washingtonians, even those not directly impacted by this disaster, need to brace themselves. We are in for the long haul with this natural disaster. We'll provide more information, but our infrastructure has been compromised. We'll have to dig ourselves out of this situation. This is not a days-long thing or a weeks-long thing. This will be going on for months. This is a very significant event in the history of our state, and that's an understatement. And that's why we're working as hard as we can around the clock to treat it exactly that way. To give you a sense, we've already had over 1,200 rescues and evacuations across more than 10 counties in Washington state. Once again, Washingtonians need to stay alert to the situation and obey road closure signs and evacuation orders. We expect additional widespread flooding across the state today and tomorrow. The Skagit and Snoqualmie rivers, as just two examples, are both expected to surpass major flood stage, cresting today and tomorrow. Importantly, we're also expecting major high winds across the region in the next 24 to 36 hours. The report I had yesterday was up to 60 miles an hour. You can imagine in a state that's been inundated with the amount of moisture that we've experienced, those type of high winds can be potentially very dangerous and create all sorts of challenges for us in the work that we're doing, and making the situation even more challenging for first responders and for all of us to respond to this situation. Roads and highways. State Department of Transportation, you'll be hearing from Julie, has reopened more than 60 roads since the storm started. I'm deeply appreciative of the hardworking Washington employees who are out there around the clock reopening those roads. It seems like for every two they reopen, another one, something happens, right? So, but they're out there relentlessly trying to keep those open for Washingtonians. We deeply appreciate the hard work of those state employees. As of this morning, there are closures, I believe, on 13 state highways. That number, of course, changes almost hourly, daily for sure. But as of now, that's the number. There are currently additionally 7 road restrictions. Several state highways have been severely damaged. Julia will provide more information, but I just want to highlight a lengthy stretch of Highway 2, as you probably know, is severely damaged. It is very difficult for us to project how long anything will take to repair. We're just getting our arms around the scope of the challenge up there. But as an example of what Washingtonians need to expect, we anticipate that Highway 2 will be closed for months. It's premature to estimate exactly how long that will be, but that is obviously a major highway. We understand the implications to business and individuals and human lives on not having that highway available for an extended period of time. We're going to do everything we possibly can to repair it as quickly as possible, but literally underwater in stages, there's major issues on that roadway, on that highway, as just one example. We understand that many Washingtonians' lives have been deeply impacted personally by this emergency. We're also moving quickly to try and get relief to those individuals. I've had numerous conversations with my team, with local elected officials across our state, see what can we do to pool immediate assistance to folks who may need assistance with a hotel stay, groceries, baby diapers, that type of thing. This morning I signed an amendment to my emergency declaration. The amended proclamation adds more information about county-specific impacts in 14 counties, and it activates several state cash and benefits assistance programs to provide emergency support. I'm appreciative of the legislators who are here and others who have worked in recent years to create this system in place so we can move those dollars out on a very short-term basis while we move forward on trying to get a declaration of emergency relief from the federal government. We're working to activate as many state resources as we can. We currently have identified $3.5 million that I, as governor, can move on my own without legislative action. I know the legislature supports that decision anyway, but of course there are limits on what I can do as governor. Of course, without legislative action, we've identified that $3.5 million. We'll provide information to the public as soon as we're able to stand that process up where folks can access. I'm also working with leadership in the House and the Senate to move forward on essentially first week legislation of the legislative session to get additional resources to folks right away and increase that dollar amount. More to come on that. I want to make sure I finish the conversations I need to have before making a public announcement, but obviously we're working hard to make sure we increase the amount of short-term funding available to folks who are really dealing with the crisis situation right now. Our Emergency Management Division is also setting up disaster case management. That will provide assistance to counties and tribes to hire disaster case managers. These case managers will provide long-term assistance to Washingtonians and help them navigate the resources available to them. We expect to bring that online soon. In addition to these individual assistance funds, there are other resources and assistance through many different agencies. This is a very non-exclusive list, but just give a sense of scale of the type of work that's being done. the Washington Department of Agriculture expedited USDA foods to Skagit County and will deliver more than 70,000 pounds of food tomorrow to local food pantries and meal programs. They're also helping farmers find services, including helping identify locations to shelter animals. The Healthcare Authority is instructing Apple Health pharmacies to replace lost or inaccessible medications or supplies due to flooding. The Department of Social and Health Services is helping connect people who are deaf, blind, or hard of hearing to resources, including its hearing equipment replacement program. The Office of the Insurance Commissioner has teams of experts ready to deploy when the time is right to help homeowners and businesses. That is just a sampling of a few examples, but as you can imagine, across many agencies and governments and tribes, a massive amount of work is being done right now to make sure we're getting resources out to individuals, and we all understand that we need to move in a manner consistent with the scope of the challenge that Washingtonians are facing. We're also moving forward to seek federal funding for needs as well. The federal emergency declaration granted by President Trump last week brought in federal resources to deal with the emergency right in front of us, saving lives, clearing debris on roadways, for example. General Welsh will talk more about some of that work as well. It did not offer monetary assistance or assistance to individuals. That's not the way that works. So what we're working on is a major disaster declaration. That's what unlocks significant financial resources for individuals and for local governments and the state for the impacts that will no doubt be profound from a financial standpoint. In order to get that declaration, we need to meet several requirements. We must show the scale of the disaster is beyond our ability as a state to fully respond, confirm we have taken appropriate action as a state under our emergency plans, provide an estimate on the amount and severity of damage to the public and private sector. This can be a time-consuming process. We've already started the conversation with local governments. We've had many conversations to make sure we're coordinating as quickly as possible to get that information and make a compelling case to the federal government of the scope and size of the damage that's been done to our state. We need to describe the resources utilized to alleviate the disaster and provide preliminary estimates on the type of assistance needed. I am confident we will make a very compelling case for disaster relief. Maybe I'll just briefly mention there are three types of FEMA disaster assistance that we'll be seeking. Public assistance can be provided to state, tribes, and local governments and certain nonprofits for emergency work to repair or replace facilities damaged by the disaster. That would include things like roads and bridges that we'll desperately need assistance with. Also, hazard mitigation assistance can be provided for projects like flood mitigation. And third, and importantly, individual assistance can help with a variety of costs for individuals who are facing significant costs after a disaster, including temporary housing, home repair, counseling, and legal services. We're also working with the Small Business Administration to get a disaster declaration from them, which will allow homeowners, renters, and business owners to access low-interest disaster loans. And before I turn to the general to say a few words, to put this in some context for Washingtonians, this is a major event in our state's history. It is truly historic. The river levels we've seen are historic. We've been tracking those river levels for more than a century. Every day I get multiple briefings, and just as one example with Julie on roads, like clearly just highway, those highways are under a lot of stress right now. And it'll take us time to even determine how long it will take to reopen some and exactly what that damage is. So, I deeply appreciate Washingtonians pulling together during this really challenging time. Neighbors are helping neighbors. Communities are helping communities. I can't tell you how many elected officials have said, hey, you know what, our community's not impacted, but we want help. What can we do? We've got resources. That's the approach that does not surprise me in our state. We're all pulling together to address an extremely challenging situation. And for those Washingtonians, again, who are directly impacted, I just want you to know, speaking to you directly, we're all doing, and many thousands of other Washingtonians are doing everything we possibly can to get you help right away. Thank you so much all for being here. I'm going to turn now to the general for additional information. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you all for being here today. And certainly thanks to our new King County executive and new dad as of this morning, Executive Sahai. King County has been a tremendous partner in this, and we truly appreciate the collaboration, and really so has the media. Appreciate everybody being here, appreciate the support. You're sharing critical life-saving information. You're sharing it every day, and in some cases, every hour. We've been relying on you to get the word out about evacuation notices, weather forecasts, And when we move into this recovery phase, we'll be turning to you to help share some of the information to get people help with some other resources out there. We are now on day 8 of this disaster, and for me and many others here, I think it's feeling a lot like Groundhog Day. Every morning we wake up, we pull out our phones out, and we look to see for some improvement out there, but Mother Nature seems to keep throwing us another curveball. I spent the last week out in our communities surveying the damage. I've seen homes filled with several feet of water. For those impacted, my heart goes out to you, and I pledge that we will do whatever we can to help you recover. We all have families that are heading into the holiday season this year without a place to stay, and this is not going to be an easy road ahead. The Washington National Guard is doing what we can to assist those who need it and prevent further damage. You see it on the commercials. When events like this thing happen, our men and women leave their civilian jobs, they get into their cars, they leave their families, and they offer their communities a helping hand. And I wear a patch on my uniform, and it says mission, people, and community. And this is the emphasis on the community part. Our women and men live and breathe this, and the last 8 days have demonstrated this community commitment. We still have approximately 250 soldiers and airmen helping with this response. They filled over 15,000 sandbags. They're preventing people from driving down dangerous roads, and they're going door to door to help with evacuations. We have aviation crews that have helped with search and rescue and to gain situational awareness. Our helicopters and pilots remain on standby and will likely get a bird's eye view in the next coming days of damaged roads across the state. Yesterday, we sent a team immediately to Tukwila to help with the levee breach. Our team was asked to walk the levees and dikes and help identify any weaknesses. And early just this morning, we moved people and 8 vehicles closer to the town of Pacific to help emergency crews responding to the levee breach there. We will keep these men and women prepared to go at a moment's notice, and if necessary, quickly add to our numbers. We have more folks that can roll out the door if they're necessary. With that, I want to remind you that the National Guard does not self-deploy, and that's for good reason. We go where we're asked, either by the governor or local jurisdictions. So if you wonder why the National Guard is in one place or another, it's because someone has asked us to be there. So let me stress this. We are helping here for this flood response, and we're helping with our local partners. Any suggestion to the contrary just isn't true. I want to give a shout out to our federal partners who are here that have been a tremendous help.
A major situation that they have playing out there in Washington State. I want to show you real quick as we have just a few moments here before the end of our stream. This is what a Google map looks like right now. If you go into that Pacific region of Washington, all of those red dots there, those are flood situations that are being plagued across the area right now. Serious flash floods has already led to 1 death, according to the officials there in Washington. You were just listening to the governor of Washington, Bob Ferguson, speak about this causing infrastructure issues that are going to cause months of response time. Also, they've had so far about 1,200 rescues, major winds and more flooding expected coming in today. They also have been able to reopen about 60 roads since the storm started, but they have several state highways that have now been severely damaged, and they're working to get resources to people across the region. We're going to continue to monitor that